Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. In this video, we are going to talk about two separate geopolitical events that happened in the last few weeks. First one, Saudi Arabia has joined Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which has Russia, China, India, Pakistan and Iran as well. Well, Saudi Arabia has started as a dialogue partner and that's the first step to become an eventual member. On the other end of the spectrum, Saudi Arabia and the other OPEC countries, the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, have decided to reduce the overall production by 1 million barrels per day. That is equal to 1% of the total consumption of oil in the entire world.
Saudi Arabia has applied to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization after the decision was approved by Riyadh's cabinet. The SCO is a political and security union of countries spanning much of Eurasia, including India and Russia.
To our top story, and OPEC Plus has announced a surprise cut of over 1 million barrels per day. Brent and WTI both surging in Asia trade this morning. We have seen prices rocketing up on this announcement. Both contracts better by 5% as we speak, with WTI sub 80 but Brent climbing towards $85 a barrel.
Now, how are these two events related together? And to understand that, we need to understand the relationship between US, China, US, Saudi and US and Russia. Before we continue with the video, why don't you go ahead, click on that like button and subscribe to the channel, and then let's jump into the first relationship that we want to talk about, that is US and Saudi Arabia. The fundamental building block of relationship between Saudi and US is established on mutual win-win situations. That is, we need oil and you need the entire military support that we can offer. That was the promise from the US. US needed the oil from Saudi Arabia. It wanted an established and a secure line of energy from one of these OPEC countries, and Saudi being the largest producer of oil from these OPEC countries, US could not find a better partner. However, the first glitch in this relationship started when US has discovered shale oil. Now, what is shale oil? Shale oil is basically derived from shale rock. Hydraulic fracturing or fracking is a technique through which high pressure mixture of water, sand and chemicals is sent into the shale rock to ultimately release the shale gas from which oil is being formed. Now, this is an expensive process compared to how petrol and diesel is derived from the crude oil, but still this is another way through which US started to produce and fulfill its energy requirements. In 2010-2011, US was importing 5 million barrels every single day from OPEC nations, and that number fell down by 80% by 2021. And you can see in 10 years time, the major advancement on the US end is nothing but shale oil. Also, US found another partner, that is Canada, to fulfill their energy requirements. Now, while this was happening on the US side, Saudi Arabia has realized that it had a need to find another strategic partner. And that is the reason where it ended up with China, because China is another economy which consumes a lot of oil. So it is a very strategic reason for them to go and explore friendships with China and other countries. Well, this is one of the primary reasons. There are other reasons why the relationship between US and Saudi are fractured. And that, if you look back at the last 6 months, when OPEC countries have reduced their production by 2 million barrels per day in October 2022, there was a stiff warning given by the US president himself.
I'm not going to get into what I'd consider and what I have in mind, but there will be consequences.
Asked whether it's time for the U.S. to rethink its relationship with Saudi Arabia, the president said yes.
In spite of that warning, these OPEC countries have still went ahead and imposed that production cuts. Now you can see how much value these guys are giving to the president of the US himself. Now let's talk about the second relationship, that is US and China. Well, China was the de facto trading partner for US for decades, and they had a good relationship going on for them, both of them. It's again a win-win situation. But this relationship also has hit the roadblock because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's election theory itself was based on America first. And when he said America first, he basically implied that the Chinese imported goods are having unfair advantages. And that is the reason when he became the president, he started imposing tariffs. Additional 10 to 25% of tariffs on goods worth $200 billion which were being imported from China. Some of these tariffs have been reversed now, but you can see the relationship was already getting strained, and that was the starting point. Now, that was again a very clear rupture of relationships. Now, moving on into the third part, that is Russia and US. Now, well, these countries have a long-standing issues going on between themselves right from the World War II. There was a Cold War that was happening between Russia or USSR and US from the World War II till 1991, and even after that there were ideological differences and how they wanted to project themselves to the overall world. And this again hit rock bottom when Russia went ahead and continued with its annexation of the Crimea region within Ukraine in 2014. There were a lot of sanctions imposed against it by US. And when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the number of sanctions increased multifold. US stopped using the oil from Russia. Now you can see how US was having some kind of difficulties in relationships with all these three major nations. Now all these three coming together and starting the next world order is something to look out for. Now where does India stand in this entire picture? India of course has good relationships with Russia. India also has good relationships with US. So it need not jump into either end of the spectrum. It can go into a relationship as long as it has strategic advantages in that particular situation. And this is what a lot of other countries are also going to follow. For example, the French President Emmanuel Macron has recently visited Beijing, and they also have good relationships with US. No country would want to basically take sides with one of them and say we are cutting down relationships with the other, because they never know what kind of strategic advantages that they might derive or what strategic advantages they might lose by partnering with one of these groups. So the new world order that we might witness in the next few decades might be only for our perceptions, but it could mean nothing in the reality. Thank you so much guys for watching this, and please do let me know if you want me to make more such videos on geopolitics and specific to Middle East. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them, and I would love to continue making more videos along these same lines. Thank you, take care, bye bye.